This month alone, we've seen two protesters, Alex Preddy and Renee Good, both shot to death by federal agents in Minneapolis. This comes as a large immigration enforcement operation has been underway in Minnesota since late last year. So to start off the conversation, I'm really curious, what's your reaction to these shootings and the aftermath that followed?
Here in the state of Minnesota, federal law enforcement agents have been doing their work, removing criminal illegal immigrants for years, and that is what is expected. That is what is keeping our communities safe. What you've seen, though, is a resistance from our local leaders. So Governor Walz, Mayor Jacob Frey in Minneapolis, there's a resistance to help with allowing the federal law enforcement agents to do that work. There's something called detainer requests, which is when there is a criminal illegal alien that is going to be released from prison, that they would be released to the custody of ICE or the federal law enforcement agencies. Now, the Minnesota Department of Corrections does honor those detainer requests. The problem is some of our counties do not, some of our largest counties. And that is why these criminal people are released onto our streets, and it makes our communities less safe. That is why you see that influx of what is going on here in Minnesota.
I think if I was one of those local law enforcement officials or something to that extent that you're saying does this, the argument would be, hey, I don't have the constitutional obligation to help with federal immigration enforcement. What would be your response to that?
So the detainer requests are to support federal law enforcement. So even at a local level, and we have fantastic law enforcement here in Minnesota. I can't say enough good about those that protect our communities and the work that they do. But these detainer requests basically alert ICE or federal agents to let them know when someone is going to be released. And that is what it is. So it's not asking our local law enforcement to necessarily do the job of a federal agent, but just to allow what federal law allows is those detainer requests to be honored.
I'm not in Minnesota right now, but obviously I, like the rest of the country, has been watching what's going on. And we saw this week, it seems to be a change of tone, right? We've seen Border Czar Tom Homan. He's come in, he said to an extent in this press conference yesterday, there's going to be a change here. He said this wasn't perfect, but here are the steps to fix this. It seems like Mayor Frey, as well as Governor Walz, and President Trump, everyone there said that they've had productive conversations with one another. Homan says that progress has been made. Do you see that? And do you think that there's this de-escalation that President Trump wanted?
I do see that, and I haven't been involved. There's many conversations going on, and I have not been involved in those conversations. I did have the honor of meeting along with 11 other people with Vice President Vance a week ago. Last Thursday, I met with him in a closed door meeting, and the conversation was allowing the President Trump's directive to still continue, but de-escalating the tone and how this is going on here. So what you saw with Tom Homan coming to Minnesota is an excellent step in the right direction. I was also very encouraged when I heard that Governor Walz and Mayor Frey had both talked with President Trump. And so you're seeing the ability of work being done, but in a little bit more controlled or safer way. A good example of that is after those conversations went on, just a few nights ago in one of our suburbs, Maple Grove, there were agitators that arrived at a hotel and damage was starting. And instead of allowing that to go on, as we've seen many times for hours and hours, there was an immediate response by the local law enforcement and then backed up and supported by our state patrol. That is an excellent example of how when people move from peacefully protesting, which I support, but if people move from peacefully protesting and are causing damage or potentially hurting anyone, it was excellent to see the law enforcement come in and that there were arrests made. And that's something that has usually been delayed in Minnesota. That is, I believe, specifically because of the conversations between President Trump and Governor Walz and the need to get things under control and de-escalated.